We have the highest Latino youth drop out of school. Banks don't give us loans, so we have the lowest home property. The list goes on. I understand that we need to consider how all these things affect all of us, but I want to appeal to you to try to understand what this means to my community. When this president started his campaign and declared all Mexican rapists and criminals, that has had an effect on my community. I carry my U.S. passport because I've seen Latinos who are speaking Spanish and they call the cops and eyes on them. The other day I was in tears when I was watching what was happening to those children at the border. And let me say this to you, the majority of undocumented in this country happen to be white, Irish, Italian from Europe, not from Mexico. But this man is not talking about building a wall between Canada and the US, right? You will never see ICE invade a white home and separate the children. So for me, this is really, really, I mean, right now I'm feeling it. But in terms of education, that's where, I'm a retired teacher. And my friends say, you're working more now than you were when you were. I live in Worcester, and we have a fight on our hand. Latino students are being suspended and expelled 85% higher than white students for committing similar infraction. The state government has come into investigating this. And they keep saying that it's the fault of the family for not sending the children to school. It's the fault of those children because they are criminal. I mean, this is unbelievable. This superintendent, we try to get rid of her because she doesn't have an answer for our concern. And one of her friends in the paper came out and said, don't worry about those children. They come from families that are spiritually poor. That is how Worcester thinks about my community. So for me, like I said, education means a lot for my community. And I understand how it has an effect on other children because Black students in Worcester suffer the same. We had a student demonstration the other day, and we had several Black students testifying. They're graduating this year, saying in all 12 years of schooling, I never had a Black teacher. Never mind about a Latino teacher, but not even a Black teacher. This is in a district that Black and Latino are the highest population, and we have no one at it. So I appeal to you. In fact, I'm going to appeal to my friend Jonathan for us to bring this moral message to Worcester. Okay? And I'm just going to add to this because this topic is education and health. And we have to understand how we got to this place where we are today. We all know ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, the biggest lobbyist in Washington. After they ruined the economy, they decided, where can we find a way of profiting? And they found out that public education was a way. And that's how we started this whole educational malpractice, masquerading as education reform. And they're profiting with the tests, Teach for America, which is the biggest union busting, the charter school. It's all, I call what's happening in order for the profiteers to justify taking over our school. The weapon of mass destruction is the test. Remember when they kept saying that there were all these weapons in Iraq and that we had to go there? And we have a governor here that went last year, almost 24/7 on TV saying he's promoting this charter school, and he's saying to the families, your schools are failing. I wrote a letter to the governor, and I said, if I were you, Governor, I'd be ashamed to tell my constituents, those families, that their schools are failing, because you are responsible to make sure that every school in Massachusetts is the same quality. But we know why that is happening. We know why that is happening, because the profiteers are making huge money. And the tests, and I'll end with this so that you understand, I sat on a panel at Harvard School to Prison Pipeline. Judge Ellis from Suffolk County, he testified that since the NCAS became a high school requirement, he witnessed a jump in his court over 200% Black and Latino. And over 95% had failed the test. We know why the test is there. It's a eugenics and racist test, and Derek Jackson hosted it, and that's what they're doing. And so our children are being denied access to quality education so that a few, I call them reverse Robin Hooders, can steal the money from our poor neighborhoods so that they can get rich. We have a great panel. These people are unbelievable. And I'm going to start with my friend Denisha Jones, who has been fighting this war forever.
Hi everyone, my name is Denisha Jones, and first I must admit I don't live in Massachusetts. I recently moved to New York State after living in Washington, D.C. for the past 10 years. But I work for Defending the Early Years, and although it's a national organization, two of the founders, Nancy Carlson Page and Diane Levin, both reside in Massachusetts, and one of the co-directors, Geraldine McWater does, but none of them could be here today, so they begged me to come and speak on behalf. So, as I was telling Jonathan, thanks for the invite, I was looking up the numbers on the train, and yes, I'm speaking about Massachusetts, but this is everywhere. This is early care and education across every state. The numbers might be a little bit different, but the story is the same. Well, it's slightly different for Massachusetts. So the first thing you see when you look up the numbers is this increase in early childhood education funding. The legislative fiscal year 2019 budget includes $629.1 million in support for early education, which is great because it's an increase from $52.1 million in 2018. And the fiscal year 20 budget represents continued progress investment in high quality early education. So people will tell you, what are you talking about? We're spending more every year on early childhood education? How dare you ask for more? But then you gotta hit them with this. We are still 17.1% below the funding since the 2001 cuts to the budget that wiped out early care and education. So no, it's not good enough that you're spending a little bit more every year. We're still not where we would be in 2001 based on inflation for the funding for early care. So a moral budget really needs to consider improving the amount we get to early child education even more than it already looks like it's making progress. So where do those funds need to go? First, you need to increase the state funding for Head Start. If you're not familiar, Head Start is a federally funded program that ensures preschool for low-income preschool students and their families. I remember I'm an immigrant. My mother, we came here from Panama, and she had a picture of me getting on the Head Start bus at 5 years old, right? And she was like, this is so cool. You're going to send a bus and pick up my kid and take her to school? Like, this is awesome, right? She loved Head Start because they came and got us and took us to school before public school starts, right? So Head Start is a valuable organization. In 2017-2018 program year, Head Start Massachusetts received $9.6 million in funding from the state, which allowed them to serve 14,501 families. However, that is only 29% of eligible 3 to 5-year-olds, and only 7% of eligible birth through 3-year-olds are served currently in Massachusetts under Head Start. That means 70% of the eligible population of 3 to 4-year-olds and even the younger kids for early Head Start are not being served by Head Start. So more funding there would definitely provide access to Head Start, and that would ensure that low-income families have access to high-quality early childhood programs. In addition to the funding for Head Start, there needs to be money to train and hire mental health experts who can address the adverse childhood experiences and trauma that young children are experiencing in the classroom. Although under America's Health Rankings of the Health of Women and Children, Massachusetts ranks 4th in ACEs, they still found that in 2019, 20% of children aged 0 to 17 in Massachusetts experienced 2 or more ACEs, which are defined as poverty, parental divorce, separation, living with someone who has alcohol, drug problems, neighborhood violence, victims of neighborhood violence, living with someone who's mentally ill or suicidal, having someone that's been incarcerated, and then being unfairly treated due to race and ethnicity, or the death of a parent, right? So 20% of the children, and that's a low estimate, are suffering from that. And we know ACEs reveal themselves in young children in preschool. They come in with severe behavioral challenges. They're unable to get their needs met for a variety of reasons, and the teachers need support and training and resources to be able to deal with that. So an increase of funding would also help. Although ACEs are prevalent in all communities, children living in poverty are more likely to confront one or more ACEs, and racial and ethnic minorities, including Black and Latino children, are more likely to have a prevalence of 2 or more ACEs as well. And Early Education for All reports that 16.7% of children under the age of 6 live below the poverty line, and I heard the number was higher earlier today, so I'm questioning these statistics. But we know that anywhere from 16 to 40% of children in this area are poor, so they're already dealing with some of the trauma that comes from ACEs as well. So investments in early childhood care and education should include funds to address the effects of ACEs and childhood trauma. The other area is expanding preschool for expansion for all children. In 2019, there was a federal program for preschool expansion that ended, and it took $15 million from federal funds with it. In fiscal year 19 and 20, the budget includes $5 million each for state-funded preschool expansion. Given the loss of the federal grant money, a moral budget should include increased funding to the state preschool expansion grant so that more communities can be funded. As I looked at the map, only very few communities in Massachusetts do not have full-day kindergarten. They seem to be very rich neighborhoods where people pay for it themselves. Regardless, childcare should be available to all people regardless of income for all children. It shouldn't be that the rich pay more and get better because they can't access the government services. Everybody should get childcare and everyone should get it together. I see my time's almost up. The last 2 things I want to mention is 1, preschool teachers need to be paid at a higher level. Right now they make less than mail order clerks, tree trimmers, pest control workers, hairdressers and janitors. As a former waitress, I can attest that I made more as a waitress than a preschool, than a kindergarten teacher. And I also want to caution, as you fight for early childhood care, to think about what defines high quality. Defending the early years, we wrote an open letter to Senator Warren when she came out with her universal pre-K plan. A lot of universal pre-K defines high quality early childhood as evidence-based research programs. This means academic instruction for 3 and 4 years old. This does not mean play. People who run play-based programs cannot get subsidy for childcare. So if you're a low-income parent and you want to send your kid to a play-based program, the state is saying no, they don't have an academic curriculum, you can't do that, and only parents with money can do that. I can attest to the fact that play helps children with special needs, it helps children with trauma, and it helps children just be children. Just develop the skills they need to survive the public school system. So we need to make sure that high quality is defined in the research as play programs as well as programs that look at social and the emotional health of children. Thank you.